everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanna Holden. I'm a Christian author and vlogger, and today I am doing all the big announcements for my upcoming series that is going to be launching in 2019. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone! It is officially 2019 today. Yay! I'm actually really excited, if you couldn't tell. But you know, beyond just the excitement of this video, I am genuinely excited for 2019. 2018 was an amazing year, and there was so much learned. There was so much that I feel like has been preparing me for 2019. And I'm gonna do a video hopefully sometime soon with like what's planned for 2019, what my year is looking like, what I'm gonna be working on. But today's video is kind of going to be a little bit like that, but it's more focused, obviously, on this new series that I'm going to be relaunching, and I want to tell you all about that today. So sit back, get ready, it's coming. So what is going on with this fairy tale series? What is it? What's happening? And why do I need a whole video explaining it? Well, the first reason why I would need an entire video explaining it is because the number one thing I am doing, and that is rebranding. Now, for those of you who don't know what branding is, when it comes to books, it has to do with the look, the titles, and the general feel of the series that you're going to be working with, or the books that you're going to be working with just in general. But for this particular subject, it's the series itself. So the branding is what ties all of these books together aesthetically or for looks and feel, so that people can tell that they all belong in the same series. This is very, very, very important when it comes to marketing. When I first came up with the idea for this fairy tale retelling series, I was, let's say 18. I don't remember exactly. But it was before I met my husband, so I'm guessing it had to have been when I was 18. And at that point in time, while I had been a writer my whole life, I was a complete newbie when it came to anything beyond just writing a story. I was even new to the concept of outlines at that time. Like, I had only been officially outlining for like, I think 2 years? I don't remember exactly. But I didn't know anything beyond the simple 3-act structure for outlining. I just knew, maybe a character profile for your characters. I didn't know anything about like, the titles of pacing, and I didn't know anything about like, I didn't know anything other than just you can write a story. So I had all these amazing story ideas, but I didn't know what to do with them once they were written. So when it came time for me to write Littlehood, which is the first book in the series, the only thing that I knew was that they were going to be fairy tale retellings, that they were going to be true to the original stories, that I was going to have a lot of fun with it, and that they were going to be novellas. That was it. I knew all the fairy tales I was going to do, but I didn't know anything about like what category they were going to fit in, so that vendors knew where to put them, what age group they were going to be targeted at, so that people knew like, do I want to pick this up for my kid or not? I didn't know anything about, target audience, like who is this book being written for other than just fairy tale lovers? Like, is there a specific niche here? What's going to make these books stand out? I knew nothing about any of that. So when I wrote Littlehood, it was just like for fairy tale lovers. I did not have any specifications beyond that. And after Littlehood released, because I had zero business experience and zero idea what marketing even was, I felt very discouraged, because nobody bought it. Imagine that. I hadn't marketed it properly. Imagine that no one would buy it. And I didn't know where to go from there. I had no clue. So at that point, I decided, okay, this is not what I want to do. So I shelved it temporarily, and I switched over to the Co-Sender series. And this was actually after quite a bit of back and forth for about 2 years on what project I should do, starting several projects and just not being able to get anything going. So after the debacle of the Co-Sender books, which I still think is not technically a debacle, but after, I realized I couldn't really push out the Co-Sender as fast as I wanted to, so I was going to have to take a little break from it. I decided to revisit the fairy tale series with the intention of popcorning the books in between the Co-Sender series. But then I received some amazing advice from a best-selling, actually, indie author who said, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't popcorn books in between your big books. That's going to ruin you. So I was like, okay, I want to do that. So I switched over my plan. Okay, I'm going to set Co-Cinder aside for a long time, and I'm going to focus on my fairy tale series, but I still didn't know who they were for, or how they were going to be branded, or like what age category, or what this, or what that. I didn't know anything. It was driving me crazy. So I sat down, I talked with a good friend, and I was like, what the heck do I do? And between the two of us, like bouncing ideas off each other, I finally figured out what I wanted to do. And basically it required a complete overhaul of the series as it stood. So that is where the rebranding comes in that I talked about in my last video, and why I pulled Little Hood from the shelves in order to re-release it. So this is where I get into the announcement side of things. I'm not really going to explain all of that. I'm just going to kind of move forward from here and tell you what to expect in the future, because it'll kind of explain itself as I go. So the rebranding, the first step, pulling Little Hood from the shelves. I loved it, but I felt like the cover, the vagueness of the target audience, and even like some of the writing, I felt cringy when I tried to recommend it to people. So I was like, if that makes me cringy now, I don't want to make the rest of my books cringy too. Again, I love the book, I love the cover, I love the illustrations, I loved everything about it, but it wasn't what I wanted. So I had to step back and rebrand, which I understand, actually, now I've learned a lot of authors will do that after they've published multiple books in that series. So it makes me feel a little less bad for doing it now. So the first step was that. Now the second step is going to be the official rebranding of the series with an official series title. You guys know that other than my fairy tale retelling series, there hasn't been an actual title for the series. And so I'm actually going to give it one now, and that is Old Tales Reborn. Why did I choose this, you may ask? This is because the phrase fairy tale and then any word like retelling, retold, rewritten, reborn have already been slapped together. There is no version that hasn't already been branded by someone else. And also, it's more than just that I'm retelling fairy tales. I'm actually taking the old original versions of these stories, lesser known stories, some of cases like stories probably that you haven't heard before, and I'm more unearthing them. They're more like just being filled out, and that's where the idea of reborn came from. They're being repolished and refitted with new gear, and they're just being put out there as the stories that they were. Basically, I've always viewed them more as extended editions. They are the same story. I just give all the characters names, give all the characters backgrounds, fill in the plot, because, fairy tales are pretty vague, and I throw in extra subplots that help things in the story kind of make sense. So they end up going from being awesome fairy tales to epic saga kind of stories. Now this series is going to be what I call an independent series, where each book is independent from the others. Like, you could pick up any one of them at any time, and like there's no specific order necessarily, like as far as story goes. However, like the one thing that will tie them all together is the fact that they're all fairy tales. That's really the only thing that's going to tie them together. However, there will be one thing that does kind of require like progressive reading for the series, depending on who you are. And that is the third step in the rebranding, which is series subcategories. Now, this is where the age grouping comes in. Because again, I didn't know about age grouping or age categories when I first started writing Little Hood, and I realized as I began plotting in the early part of December that like just throwing the books out there for all ages wasn't going to work anymore, because there were two fairy tales that I really loved that I couldn't let go of, that were a little bit more mature than probably an 8 to 12-year-old would need to read necessarily. Now, I'm not saying that it's got adult content, because there's none of that in there. But it deals with some more mature themes that someone probably wouldn't get into until they were upwards in their teens. So I decided to go back and rearrange the order that I was going to write them so that they now fit 3 categories that were defined by age groupings. And allow me to explain how that works. Age groupings are usually defined by the age of the main character and the amount of content in the book. And content doesn't necessarily mean just like, sex and language and, graphic violence. It can also be just the themes that are discussed. Are they more mature than maybe an 8 to 12-year-old would want to read? Is there a fast enough pace to the book that it actually would be considered too intense for a kid, maybe especially like if you're getting more thriller. So Little Hood and the next book that I'll be writing will be middle grade novels. So for a middle grade novel, so your main characters can be preteen, and the pacing of the book, while it may be fast paced, it's not going to be overly intense. And you're not going to be discussing like super mature themes in the book. Maybe still having like some deep, meaningful themes, but not like uncomfortable for young kids. So that is what Little Hood and its following book are going to officially be. Now, I've had several people that have read the book tell me that as adults and teenagers, they felt like perfectly in love with the book as it was. This is speaking again about Little Hood, and I had a preteen that told me that he just loved it like it was too. So these books are still going to be like for all fairy tale readers, but I feel like the age groupings are going to help more for the later books. So because the main character in Little Hood is 10 years old and the main character in the next book is going to be 11, I felt like it just fit the story best to label it middle grade. This helps with vendors, not vending. This helps with like vendors like Amazon and other places know where to put the book. And then it helps me with marketing to know how to market the book. It does not mean that this book and its following book that I'm going to be writing next will not be perfectly fine to read for adults. Again, those who've read the book said that it was exciting as an adult. And the main characters, while they are young, are like surrounded by adults. Like the two other point of views in Little Hood are from her mother and the woodcutter. So like you got multiple perspectives and two of the three are adults. So it's not like I'm excluding adults here in any way, shape, or form. But again, just the fact that there's not a high level, like ridiculous high of intensity, ridiculous amount of violence, or, you know, extremely dark, mature themes being discussed, it's perfectly fine for me to label it middle grade. This also fixes the second problem that I was really having with it, was that I wanted some of them, I originally wanted all of them to be novellas, which is a book that's 25 to 50,000 words. But I realized that that was going to severely limit me in how much writing I could actually do. And after writing Co-Sender, I realized what an overwriter I am and that I need a little bit more room to breathe. I also realized that making them all novellas was going to significantly cut back on the amount of marketing that I could do, because a lot of promotional places won't let you put your book out for promotion if it's a novella, if it's like under 50,000. So the first two are going to be middle grade, which means that I can keep them the length that they were supposed to be, that 25 to 35,000 word mark. Little Hood will stay right at around 25,000, and the following book will probably be closer to the 35,000 mark. That makes everything copacetic, and I don't have to worry about labeling them as novellas. They're still novels, they're middle grade, that's the average length. The next 4 books in the series are going to be young adult. That means they're written for teenagers to, well, young adults. And the reason I chose to do this, despite the way my entire being cringes at the word young adult, or at the phrase young adult, is because the main characters are all teenagers, between the ages of 15 and 18. So that's about the age range that you would expect for the protagonist of a young adult fantasy novel. Now, there's not going to be very many of the young adult tropes in this book that we all cringe at. Don't worry, I'm not going down that road. This is more just, again, just labeling it young adult because that's the age of the character and the level of maturity. So while the themes will still not be mature, there are going to be some maybe more intense moments. They're going to be significantly longer, so they'll be from the 50 to 60,000 word mark. And yeah, there's going to be a lot more complexity, a lot more subplots and characters and stuff. So it fits that I upped the age grouping as well. And then the last two are what really drove me to subcategorize these books. And that is because I have decided to put these 2 books into the new adult category. Now, new adult is a relatively new subcategory for age grouping, and it's mostly defined by the characters being college age. So like early 20s, so late teens, early 20s. And in these 2 books, not because I'm going off the deep end, these 2 books are going to be more mature just in general. There is actual marriage involved. There are some more mature themes relating to marriage and some other things that are going to be discussed and explored. There's going to be, in the one book particularly, some very intense moments, and it's actually going to have a darker feel, more like a psychological thriller type feel although I don't think it'll actually be a thriller, but it's going to be a very haunted goth kind of feel to it because of the fairy tale. Which, just a side note, for those of you who are worried about me doing this, these are fairy tales that, as is, are put into kids' books, like kids' collections of fairy tales. And when written out, they require at least a young adult or new adult rating. So, just saying, it's not me, it's the fairy tales, okay? Like, this is how they are, this is the story that's being told. I have to completely change the story to bring the number or the age grouping back down comfortably. And again, like, the young adult books are going to be easily for either end of the spectrum, for kids, for adults, for all the young adults. The new adult ones, I would not recommend for kids, the 8 to 12 range, and I would recommend caution handing them to a 12 to 16-year-old, depending on the sensitivity of the kid and the discernment of the parent. But for 16 and up, it should be fine. Like, that's the best really that I can do to define it. And again, you'll have to learn, like, it is the story of the fairy tale that is what requires that. It's not that I'm trying to be more mature and an adult writer. It's that these are actually the stories that I'm trying to tell, and they're awesome stories. They're epic stories that deserve retellings, but because of the content in the actual fairy tales, you have to up the age rating. It's just as simple as that. So where does that leave me? Like, what is the next step? Now that I've officially made the rebranding, what the heck is happening? So, and I'm, again, hopefully going to be doing, like, a video on what's coming up in 2019 to kind of give you a gauge of, like, what my schedule for writing will be and getting these books out. But I can tell you that Littlehood, basically, with the rebranding, there will be new covers, new design, new interior, and I think probably some rewriting for Littlehood, so that when Littlehood does get re-released, because as I mentioned, it's been pulled from the shelf, I will be officially re-releasing it in, drumroll please, that was an awful drumroll, you can't hear it, but I'll be re-releasing Littlehood in fall of 2019. The re-release will mean that the cover will be new, and again, the formatting inside will be different. And I may or may not have the opportunity to do some editing on it, maybe just a smidge of rewriting, not the story itself, but just some of the writing, some of the narrative, and a little dialogue that just I don't feel like was my best. But it is coming out for sure and certain in fall of 2019. It's going to be out there again, released, available for purchase, and I may be doing some giveaways on it once it does come out, so keep an eye out for that. And what's the next step beyond that? While I cannot tell you for secrecy reasons all of the fairy tales are that I will be writing, I can tell you the next one because I am going to be working on it this month, actually. So the second book in the middle grade subcategory of my Old Tales Reborn series is The Snow Queen. And for those of you who are wondering, no, this is not a retelling of Frozen. You need to go back and read the original because it is very epic and they really did not tell that story at all. Fortunately for me, because now I can retell it to my heart's desire. And the official title for this retelling of The Snow Queen is Snow Dust. I love that title. I have loved it since I first thought of it. And it really encompasses, like, the whole Snow Queen theme without, like, neglecting the true heroine of the story, who is Gerda. I'm so excited to launch into her story, and I will do another video, like, on the actual Snow Queen fairy tale, what this book, Snow Dust, is going to look like, and when it will have a potential release, once I actually get started drafting it and kind of see how things are going. But if you want to find out why the title is Snow Dust, then you're going to have to wait and read the book, because that is explained, and it is very epic and awesome, and I'm so excited! Now, I can't tell you the exact release date because obviously I haven't written the book yet, but the goal for this first, like, retelling is winter of 2019, bleeding over possibly into winter of 2020. So, like, that November to February / March-ish range, the cold months of the year. So, which is perfect because it's all about snow, so isn't that just exciting? So yeah, that is the next book in the series that I will be working on, and I will be starting drafting that not February 1st, but sometime in the beginning of February is when I will begin drafting that book, and I will start making my writer vlogs again, so you can kind of come with me on the journey. Because these books are shorter, I feel much more confident in being able to actually finish them in a shorter period of time and be able to turn them around and edit them pretty quickly. I don't have all the world building and ridiculous amounts of plots to deal with in this next fairy tale that I did with Co-Thunder and the Mammoth series that it's a part of. So that should shorten the time frame significantly. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you're as excited for this new series book as I am, and just for the re-release of Little Hood and the the writing of Snow Dust, and for this whole series. I'm very excited. I will very soonly be revamping my books page on my website to really go with this new series rebranding. I'm very excited about that. I'll have a link in the description box below. I always have a link to my website, but when I put up the news about Snow Dust, I will go ahead and add the specific link to my books in that one. So, all right, that's all the information that I have, and I need to wrap up this video. So I love you all so much. Keep writing, and I will see you all in my next video. Make sure you subscribe on the way out because more updates will be coming your way very soon. Bye.